Good morning,
Welcome.
everyone.
Started so badly.
Yeah, it
Right,
was.
after you, Lawrence, after you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for the third day. And if it's your first time, welcome. You can watch the other days on our YouTube channel, so feel free to go back and watch all of them because there's been some really good talks from our guests. And I'm just pretty sad it's our last day. It's been amazing, and the audience have made it fantastic as well.
Yeah, good to see a few people already commenting. So, morning, Chloe and Matthew. So please feel free to comment. If it is your first time, we'd love to hear from you as well. And what we found, we've had some really insightful questions. It has been a struggle to ask all of your really good questions to the speakers. So we're going to try and see what we can do to sort of put those to them today. But please keep the comments coming in. It really helps us sort of appreciate what you're thinking about the speakers and their jobs. So yeah. We'll do a quick introduction for those of you that are, hey everyone, it's the same crowd, love it. We'll do a quick introduction for anyone that is joining us for the first time today, and then without further ado, we'll get into the speakers. So let's first of all just give you a very brief introduction to myself and Lawrence. Lawrence, do you want to sort of give a bit of background?
Absolutely. So my name's Lawrence Tajani. I'm the founder of Just a Guy Foundation. I'm also a director at Happy to Host, which is a web design and development company. I taught for 10 years in a school in Bermondsey. I was a computing teacher, and then I left 3 years ago to focus on my web design development business. But also in the same time, I've set up a social enterprise. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, so apologies for Jack, Ben, Labour, Chloe, Matthew who are hearing this again. But so I was a maths teacher for 13 years after doing a civil engineering degree. There's a lot of maths in a degree, so it kind of makes sense. But then after using technology a lot, I ended up making a move to training teachers with technology, using particularly Google for education tools. And more recently, I started doing wider work around innovation and change. So running something called a design sprint. So as you make your way into the world of work, you might find that some of the companies you work for are looking to come up with new ideas. And a design sprint is a really interesting way of doing that. So feel free to sort of look up design sprints if you're interested. But yeah, so that's us. And we'll just give you a little bit of background on Lawrence's foundation, and then we'll be good to go.
So I'm just going to go over what Just a Guy Foundation and how it was kind of born. So next slide, please, Ben. So originally, Just a Guy started out as a way to document my recovery from a severe epileptic attack where I had to learn to walk again. I chose the name Just a Guy because essentially I'm just another guy trying to make it, and we all are trying to make it in this life. So it transcended into a full kind of social enterprise a couple of years later. So Just a Guy aims to improve the aspirations and educational outcomes of young people. We do this through mentoring, workshops, and we also want to help young people make informed decisions. Our core belief is that students from all backgrounds, or young people from all backgrounds, should have access to networks of advice, support, and mentoring. And we do this through a number of ways. And the ultimate aim of this is that you'll be able to drive your own social mobility. Really big on that. Next slide, please, Ben. So why are we doing this? I was out for a run about 4 weeks ago, and I was thinking, what could I do during this pandemic? How can I give back? And it dawned on me that there would be thousands of students across the country who won't be able to go on work experience due to COVID-19. So I know for me personally, work experience was a big factor in my life. It allowed me to speak to people that I normally wouldn't have access to, and it helped me mature as well. So I decided to reach out to my network and see if they would be up for talking about their amazing careers. And some of the people I've only met online in the last few weeks, and they've volunteered their time to talk about their careers. We are going to be announcing the competition winners in the afternoon, and we will be getting these vouchers out to you. So to be in for a chance of winning some vouchers, all you have to do is follow us on our social media, justaguy_LT, and that's both on Instagram and Twitter. and just post about the event. Post about you just watching the chat, watching the video. We're keen to get your feedback from this event. And also, please do not forget to subscribe, comment, and like. I know I've said this a couple of times. I still don't think I'll get used to saying that. Subscribe, comment, and like I'm a real YouTuber, because I'm definitely not.
Just need an Adam Buxton style song to play at that point.
So remember, today is about you. The whole week has been about you. We want to make sure we try and get your questions answered in this talk. So feel free, as I can see it ready, to use the chat to ask your questions. Try and get as much as possible from this event. I really wish I had something like this when I was in school, being able to ask questions to a range of different people. So please do ask your questions in the chat. And if you don't have a YouTube account and you're just watching online, you can also ask your questions at bit.ly/JagCFQA, all capital letters.
Awesome. So this is our lineup today. We've got Imogen, Ryan, Zainab, and Tom. I did ask a quick question of our viewers, sort of which talks have stood out for them so far, and we've had a couple of mentions of Dean and also Jack. So Dean was the Googler and Jack was the veterinary nurse, and then also Antonius as well, the plastic surgeon, stood out for the people who've commented so far. So hopefully there's some more favourites for you to come today. So what we're going to do first of all is bring in Imogen, and in a moment we'll pass over to Imogen to introduce herself. Welcome, Imogen. Oh, I think you need to unmute.
Hiya, how are you?
Hi.
No worries. Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. I think I'll just pass over to you. I'll get your slides going, and you can sort of share what it is that you do and kind of how you got there along the way. So over to you, Imogen.
Okay, lovely, jubbly. So my name's Imogen Napper, and I'm a research fellow at the University of Plymouth. So I'm going to tell you a little bit how I got to this point of where I'm being a expedition scientist with National Geographic, because I've kind of come in a very strange higgledy-piggledy way. Next slide, please. So what does my role involve? Well, I really wear many hats. I could be on the ocean taking samples, looking for plastic. I could be building a lab. We've just built a washing machine lab. I could be analysing all of the plastic particles or any plastic bits. And the picture to the far right is me actually sampling at a sewage treatment works. So I can really go anywhere and do anything that's linked to plastic. And it's really exciting. It showed me that a career can be so versatile, and there's definitely not one boring day. I'm always doing something, always getting my toes stuck in the sand somewhere. Next slide, please. So what studying or training have I had for my role? Well, this is kind of where I can talk about how I didn't do a conventional route. When I finished school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And like these guys were just saying, that's completely okay. I think there's such a pressure on when you're about 15, 16, 17, that you have to know what you want to do. You have to know where you want to go. You have to know your future career. And I really didn't. I knew I really liked research. I knew I really liked science, but I didn't know what direction I could go in. So it's actually through going to a football match with my dad at Lincoln that I went to an open day at Lincoln University, and I just flicked through a prospectus. I saw biomedical science and I chose that. So my original degree was in biomedical science, and it was from that degree that I was able to really expand my knowledge onto research. I looked at how to do things in the lab, how to do field work, and just learn all of the nitty-gritty details of what being a scientist is and does. And the best advice I ever got from my mum was do what makes you happy. I grew up in a seaside town. I love surfing, and pollution and beach litter is something that's always really impacted me and upset me. So I wanted to be part of that solution. With the help of my supervisor in undergrad, I then went and did a master's in biotechnology, and that helped me broaden and also pinpoint a certain part of science I wanted to go into. And then I knew what made me passionate. So it was all about plastic pollution. And with the help of my colleagues and my supervisor, I then applied for a PhD looking at the sources of plastic into the ocean. So where have I worked previously? I didn't really know what to put here, but I thought I should be like completely honest. So I've actually worked as a cleaner in a retirement hotel when I was trying to get some money at school. During university, I was Nando's front of house, so I can tell you all about the menu. I also worked in a bar for 2 years at university. I was a silver service I was a waitress at weddings. And then after my PhD, which kind of was a job, but more of a learning experience as well, then I was a research associate for DEFRA, looking at fibres and tyre particles going into the ocean. And now I'm a research fellow for National Geographic. So I can show you that all of the dots seem really unconnected, but if you look backwards, it makes a lot of sense. Next slide, please. So what's my proudest professional achievement to date? Luckily in research, you have lots of small wins. So when it gets really stressful and you're tired and you're doing research until late in the night, it's these small wins that can really help you going. And my first research piece was looking at microbeads in cosmetics. Funnily enough, I did a talk the other day and I actually have some. So these are the facial scrubs. These used to have microbeads in. So this facial scrub is full of tiny plastic particles, and you'd be used to wash your face. These plastic particles would go down the drain, potentially through the sewage treatment works, and then into our ocean. And no one had done any research looking at how many tiny plastic particles could be in one bottle. So that's exactly what we decided to do. And I extracted all of them. It took me ages in the lab because there were so many in there. Originally, I thought there might be 100, but this is how much we found. So can you see in comparison? So we found that 3 million tiny plastic particles, these microbeads, could be in one bottle. Using that research, we were able to communicate that to the general public, saying you don't need to buy these, you can buy a natural one instead. So ocean hero in that moment, saying, nope, I don't need to have a microbead facial scrub. We were then also able to influence industry to remove microbeads from their products. And then the biggest win was changing legislation through my research, saying that microbeads are now illegal in all facial scrubs, all of these tiny plastic products. And on the screen here, I put my first ever draft of my paper. You can see it's completely covered in pen of changes from my supervisor. But then to the right, you can see all of the news press that we got from it. So it was a real big learning experience, and it was a lot of hard work, but it can show you how much hard work can make a change. Next slide, please. What skills, knowledge are essential for this role in industry? Well, one is patience. Science is slow. I'm going into the lab later, and I just feel like it's a drop in the ocean of how much work I need to do. So just be patient, know that things will happen. You also have to be patient for things like funding, getting your papers out, getting your papers accepted. Papers are basically science currency. It's if you've got something that's amazing and you want to get it published for other scientists and colleagues to see, you put it in a paper. Determination, it can be a little bit hard sometimes. There can be sometimes funding rejection. You might not get a paper out as fast as you want. Things in the lab might start going wrong. So you really have to be determined and not let that get you down. Networking, oh my goodness, networking has been one of the best things that I've done for my whole career. The picture on the top right is me and my boss Heather and some other friends and colleagues. And I did a talk at National Geographic about plastic pollution and my research. If I hadn't done that talk, I wouldn't have met my boss, and then she wouldn't have invited me to be an expedition scientist, a research fellow of National Geographic. So that led on to a job. Repetition makes perfect. You've got to repeat things. You've got to make mistakes, which is my next one, to get a perfect product, to really push science forward, and have a passion. Again, this is probably one of the most important. You've got to be passionate about what you do. You've got to understand why you want to do it, and it has to really hit your heart. So on those bad days of research, you can look at your passion and understand why you're doing it. Next slide, please. as a teenager, I wish I knew, don't follow the path you think people want you to follow. If you don't want to go to university, that's absolutely no problem. There's loads of other ways you can get into marine science through not going into university. Don't think that you need to go to university and study a specific subject. For my A-levels, I studied physics and chemistry because I thought that's what people wanted me to do because I was quite sciencey, but I'm terrible at physics and quite bad at chemistry. I think in physics I got a D or an E, and I did it because I thought that's what people wanted me to do. And then in the end, it doesn't really make you that happy studying that subject or going down that certain path because, like the last slide, that's not your passion. Next slide, please. So how can attendees find out more about getting into marine science, my industry? Main one, talk to people, an email, a letter, in person. It's all of that networking that's so valuable. Get experience and volunteer, even if it's an hour here or there, or if you're able to go and get some experience in the lab, it just gives you that confidence. Read up on research and news. Just go into Google search. If you're interested about plastic, write about new plastic pollution research because it's such a quickly developing research field. Social media is such a powerful tool. Some really good ones on social media are Women in Ocean Science for the females out here, and looking at different research specific groups. Blog posting, have a look at Marine Conservation Society, MCS. National Geographic has some great blogs, some blogs about the expedition I was recently on. And for the Marine Biology Association, they've got some really good blogs coming out from early career researchers. And just YouTube videos. I still watch YouTube videos on specific subjects I want to learn more about, and that really helps me with my research. Next slide, please. So links to my own social media, please give me a follow. I've got a website, www.imogenapper/napper.com. My Twitter is just imogenapper, and so is my Instagram. Next slide, please. Anything else you'd like to add? This is a really important one to me. It's imposter syndrome. I've learned that everyone has it. Everyone feels like they shouldn't be there, or their work isn't maybe good enough, or someone's going to find out that maybe they're not the best person for the job. But you really are. If you're passionate about it and you're trying hard and you want to make a difference, then you know you're the right person there. And just realize that everyone at some point in their life will have something called imposter syndrome. You just learn how to deal with it. Next slide, please.
You're out of slides.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's really, really interesting. And we've got quite a few questions. So I'm going to try and put a couple to you now, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, Matthew was sort of asking around the research, sort of how long does it take? So I wonder if you might want to talk about your most recent expedition and kind of the time scale of going out to Bangladesh and India, coming back and doing the research, and when that will be published.
Okay, so how long does your research take in terms of looking for microplastic particles? It's not quick, but breaking it down, there's lots of small wins. So that picture there is actually the expedition team full of scientists from the UK, US, Bangladesh, and India. So again, amazing for networking. I started this job a year and a half ago, and then you've got so much time building the research plan and the methodology. So that's the first chunk of time, and that took maybe 3 months. Then it's preparing for the expedition itself, getting all the equipment ready. That took about a month, but that was very tight. So I was running around like a headless chicken. Then we had 2 expeditions. We had pre-monsoon and post-monsoon. So expeditions can be as long or as short as your research question needs. And then you've got to be ready for a few curveballs like COVID when you come back, because that can massively impact my lab time. I haven't been allowed in the lab for 3 months, so I'm trying to catch up time now. And then in terms of the lab, again, it depends on what your research question is and what samples you have. So during this India trip, I've been getting a whole 3D picture of plastic, how it's getting into the river and where it's going. And I've been taking water samples, sediment samples, and air samples. The water samples and air samples are easier to analyze because they're not stuck in sediment. So I can look down a microscope and extract them. Once I've extracted them, I then use an instrument called an FTIR which is a Fourier transformation infrared spectrometer. It sounds way harder than it actually is. I just shoot an infrared light at a material and it tells me what material type it is, whether it's plastic. But for the sediment, it's way more tricky and way more messy because I have to extract all of the plastic from that big mess. So for the India trip, I'd say that in terms of the lab analysis for microplastics, I'm still doing it now, and it's taken me over 6 months. And then you got the paper writing, and then that is just edits, submission. You could get rejection, you could get major revisions from people that are critiquing it. So a long time, but it's worth it and it's fun. So that's the main thing.
Thank you. We've got another question from Pedro. What's the process like for writing a paper?
Amazing and painful. So watch this space, because I actually have a paper coming out next week looking at different inventions that try and capture fibers in the washing cycle to stop plastic fibers getting into the ocean. I started that project 2 years ago, and the paper writing, once you've got the results, then you can do all the analysis. And a paper is structured by introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. So I can do the introduction, which is introducing the topic. The methodology is how I did it in the lab. The results is exactly what it says. It's the results from the experiment, and the discussion is discussing the results. And it can often go like this, while you're trying to find out the pattern and what story you want to tell. It's a long process, because then you have to submit it to a journal to accept the paper, and the journal can accept it with minor or major revisions or reject it. If you've got major revisions, it could be another few months or weeks trying to sort them out. Minor is only a few edits that you have to make, and a rejection is you have to submit it to another journal, maybe a lower impact journal. But that's how science runs. There's a few problems with it that we're hoping as scientists we can try and change. But it is really exciting once you get a paper out, because it's been peer reviewed, we say, by other scientists. So they've accepted it's good science.
And just to follow on from that question, how do you recover from, if it's not accepted, the setback potentially? Have you ever had a journal that's not been accepted? I've
been really lucky. I've never had a rejection. I spent a lot of time with my paper trying to get it to the best version it can be, and then do lots of research, understanding what journal might want to take it. I've had major revisions before. Sometimes you can get not nasty reviewers, but reviewers that want to make a lot of changes. Some reviewers don't. So once you have that, and it's really your baby, you've spent a lot of time with this research. You've spent a lot of time trying to get it perfect. And when you submit it, you're so proud of it and you think it's perfect. So when someone comes back and they say, this isn't good enough, you need to change this is irrelevant, just delete this. It's a little bit of a, stabbing moment. But you do know, even though it sucks at the time, once you've made those revisions and you've gone forward, it does make it into a better paper. So it's just accepting it's going to be a bit painful for a few weeks while you're editing it and having to look back at this work that you were quite happy with, and just realize that it is going to push the science forward for the better.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw in one quick one, if I may. Kirsty's asked a couple of times, what grades did you need to get in? I know that's not a straightforward one because there's been several steps, but is there a particular grade requirement to get into any of the courses?
I'm not a brain box at all. I've said before, and I talked with you, Ben, that I'm really not very good at maths. My brain just does not work for maths. So something that can be really simple to someone else, I find very difficult, and I have to really sit down and just think about it and break it down into steps. And even then, I might not even get it. So don't expect to do a PhD that you have to be a complete science maths wizard and have the best grades in the world, because I certainly didn't. I would say that I was quite average across the board, and the maths probably was lower than average. When you go to university, if you want to do a PhD, I'd say you should get higher than a 2-1 and higher than a merit at master's level. But if you don't let that get you down. There's still other ways you can get in. The main thing for me that I would look for, and what my supervisor would look for, is your passion and how much you want to make a change and how hardworking you are. So don't think that grades are everything, 'cause I'm very passionate that they're not.
Thank you.
Perfect note to leave that one on for now. So thank you for your time. If you're okay to stick around, may have a few questions at the end, but yeah, we'll sort of go move on to our next speaker now. So thank you so much, Imogen. Keep the questions coming in if you've got them, and we'll try and put them to everyone at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. Ben, just before we move on, I think we should probably explain what a 2-1 is at university, because I'm aware that maybe our audience might not know that. So a first class is the highest you can get in your degree, and then a 2-1 is the next step down, and then you have a 2-2, and then you have a third.
Yeah. So I suppose different grading system for that. What I found interesting is that I've got a lot of friends who maybe found they didn't excel at school, and then actually once they got to university and really found something they were passionate about, then they skyrocketed. So it really is stage, not age, right? You suddenly find something that clicks, and everything kind of comes together.
And I think sometimes that even happens in your second year at uni, because in your first year you have like a general course that are compulsory units that you have to take. And I personally felt that I took the wrong degree. It was only when I got into my second and third year where I could specialize a bit, I started to pick modules that I was really interested in, and I was able to excel a lot better than I was in my first year, put it that way. So I think we've gone on a little bit there, Ben. I think we're going to bring on our next guest, Ryan O'Leary, who is a PR manager.
Hiya.
How are you, Ryan?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Good. Thank you for taking part in this careers fair today. I'm looking forward to your talk. I've always been quite interested about PR and what actually goes on behind the scenes and what you do. So I'm going to be listening very keenly to this. I might even put a few questions in myself.
No pressure.
All right, then over to you, Ryan.
So as the first slide says, I'm Ryan O'Leary. I'm PR manager, and I work at a PR agency in London called Alpaca Communications. So I thought I'd start off. So next slide, please. Just describing a little bit about what PR is. Before I got into PR, I didn't really know what it was at all. So the PRCA, which is our governing body, defines PR as all about the way organisations communicate with the public, promote themselves, and build a positive reputation and public image. The way an organisation is represented in the media has a huge impact on how people perceive it. So PR professionals try to influence the media to represent their organisation positively and communicate key messages. So it's all about communicating the right message to the right audience. So if I'm working for a makeup brand and their target audience is female 20 to 30, I'm going to want the likes of Grazia magazine, Stylist magazine to cover their product, because that's where their audience's attention is. And I think that's what it's all about with PR. PR is about earned attention. So the difference between PR and advertising is PR is earned media, advertising is paid media. So although you're conveying a very similar message, advertising, the brand's going to pay for that TV slot, they're going to pay for that billboard. Whereas PR is all about leveraging relationships with the media to get them to cover the stories that you want. So I like to think of PR as earning attention to inspire positive change. So next slide, please. So example on the left, or my left, I don't know if it's your left, is Marcus Rashford. So this is a perfect example and a very recent example of PR for positive change. So Marcus Rashford used his profile, used his high Twitter following to actually lobby the government to change their decision about scrapping free school meals. He used his high profile on Twitter and social media. He used an article in the Times newspaper, and he wrote an open letter to the government explaining why they shouldn't be scrapping school meals. And because of this public perception, because of this interest, and he built a big fan base through it, he was able to, achieve his goal. And then the next one, a very different campaign on the next one, is the Greggs vegan sausage roll. Now I've chose this one just because I'm pretty sure everyone was aware of this campaign and when it released. And what Greggs did amazingly well here was they caused controversy to get headlines. So they knew people like Piers Morgan would really hate the fact that you're turning a sausage roll vegan. So when these people like Piers Morgan with big followings were slagging it off on Twitter, Greggs actually got loads of free publicity from that. And so that's when that's the reason why when they launched the product, there was queues outside Greggs for people trying to get hold, because they caused this intrigue in the campaign and excitement around the product. And I have to say, I've had one and it tastes very nice as well. So definitely recommend. Next slide, please. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what the industry is and the types of work that happens in PR. In terms of my role as an account manager, I essentially help communicate my clients' news and messaging and campaigns to their target audiences via the media. Now, I can either do that through news items or press releases, so like articles, or case studies. So I work with a healthy dog food company that likes to use before and after photos just to show how healthy their product is in dogs. Product placement. So when I work for my TV client, it's all about getting journalists and influencers to review their TVs, and then they're going to write about it. So then hopefully people read the article and like, oh, you know what, that TV is amazing. Yeah, I want that. And then also social media activity as well. So engaging a brand's community through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, those sort of platforms. Next slide, please. So I had a very standard route when it comes to education. So I did my GCSEs at high school. I then did A-levels at college. At the end of A-levels, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a footballer, but if you've ever seen me play football, you realise that was never going to happen. So I decided to go to university. And the reason why I did English was because I wanted to keep my options quite broad. And that was my best A-level. So I was like, well, if I'm good at it, then I might as well try and explore it and study it further. And I enjoyed writing, so I was always passionate about writing. So I combined the two and did an undergraduate at Swansea University. So again, during the end of university in my third year, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. So what happened was I was really enjoying the creative writing side of my course, but I wanted to write more with business. So that's why I did PR, media and communications. So I could continue the writing, but it was more in a business sense compared to maybe a fictional sense with like screenwriting. And I managed to secure a postgraduate scholarship, so then I could stay on at university and study that. And what I will say is though, and this is really important, whilst I did my master's degree, I got a internship at a local PR agency where I could put what I was learning at university into practice, and that gave me seriously good work experience. It made me sometimes you don't know what you want to do until you're actually doing it in the practice, and that made me suddenly realize, like, yeah, you know what, I really actually enjoyed this, so I wanted to pursue it. And also work experience makes you so employable, so whatever route you go down, just try and get as much experience as possible. Next slide, please. So I've always worked in PR. I mean, obviously before, I went into the world of work, I had bar work and various little odd jobs to get money in whilst I was at university. But since, I graduated, I've always worked at an agency. Now in PR, you can either work in-house or at an agency. So in-house is where you work for one company. So you could be the PR manager for Nike or, Adidas, or insert any brands, but you'd just be working solely on that company. So all their product releases, that would fall under you. Whereas an agency, you have various different clients and different accounts. And that's what appealed to me, because my day is very varied in terms of the work that I do. One morning I could be working on a car brand. The next day I'm doing a dating app. The day after that I'm doing some form of tech platform. So that's what appealed to me. But I do know people who work in-house and they love it as well. So it's really just personal preference and what's available to you. Next slide, please. So what is my proudest professional achievement to date? So the BT Sports Industry Award is a very illustrious awards do. And a campaign that I worked on alongside my team at Alpaca, we won Best Sports Sponsorship Campaign for the Manorama campaign. And this was in association with the Vanorama National League and Prostate Cancer UK. So Vanorama were our clients. And so they were title sponsors of the National League, which is the 5th tier of English football. Prostate Cancer UK were the charity partners of that league. Our job as a PR agency was to get as much news coverage and as much attention on that new charity partnership, which is great, but that's not that interesting. A standard charity partner release isn't that, it's nothing new. And with PR, it's all about news. It's all about where's the headline. So we said, why don't you, for the month of Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, change the name of the league from the Vanorama National League to the Manorama National League. One, to highlight and raise awareness of prostate cancer. But two, because the reason why this campaign worked so well was football league anywhere in the world, a football league had never rebranded during halfway through the season. So it was a world first. So naturally, that's a headline straight away. And what worked well as well was we put man before van to highlight the biggest killer cancer in men. So it worked quite well, raising awareness with the charity's messaging. What was good about this campaign is throughout the whole month, reporters and commentators, without realizing it, had to mention our campaign every single time they read out the scores, which again increased publicity and the success of the campaign. And then most importantly, it raised a lot of money for a great charity, and hopefully got some football fans, male football fans, going to the doctors for a checkup, which is, the most important thing. So yes, next slide, please. So what skills do you need? I think first and foremost, you do need to be able to be a good writer. And if you're not a good writer, at least a good storyteller, have a good imagination, because, journalists receive so many emails from PRs, in terms of, press releases and articles. So it really needs to be a compelling piece to get their attention, to get them to cover it. And that's where creativity comes in. So, you need to be able to come up with creative campaigns. It's got to gain cut through, on social media or in the news. Every good campaign has shareability. So why would you engage with a post? Why would you engage or retweet? Is it because it's a really hard hitting story about a charity's cause that they're trying to get awareness for? Or is it, a really cute video of puppies with balloons and, it's cute, so everyone retweets it? You've got to have that creativity. And then it sounds an obvious one because it's a communications role, but you need to be good at communicating, having good people skills to liaise and manage expectations of clients and journalists. But I think this one comes with experience as well, and a little bit of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to read the room, to give the right feedback, to say the right thing at the right time. And that just comes with practice. No one's good at that. And whoever says they're good at that instantly is lying. So communication as well. Next slide, please. So when I was younger and as a teenager, I just wish I knew how many career options there were out there. There's so many options. You don't have to go down the same route I went, which is a very stereotypical education route. You can be anything now, and there's so many different avenues you can go down. So I would just, try and explore as many as possible whilst you've got time. You don't just have to, start your career at 18 and then that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Just realize that there are options out there and explore them. And that one, everyone's probably heard it. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? Working hard, but it really does pay off. A lot of people who I know who worked hard at some point in their life, they're really doing well now. So work hard and explore options. So in terms of getting into the PR industry, there's lots of good colleges that have good media departments that are worth checking out online. So I think, even if it's not in PR, if you're into videography or presenting, definitely check out some colleges online so they're good. Messaging agencies, places are always on the lookout for interns. That's what I did. So when I was 18, I got a LinkedIn account and messaged people. So definitely do that, because people will take you on. And then there's lots of various websites and magazines out there, like PR Week, Provoke, the Drummond campaign. So you can see what kind of campaigns are being worked on at the moment. And finally, it sounds so cliche, but do something you love. Because you go to work most days of the week. You want to do something that you're passionate about. It really does make life easier. And number two is, and most importantly, I think, is just network. There's people out there. Someone will always be willing to help you if you just ask. And you ask questions. Get a LinkedIn when you're 18, message people that you're interested in. Hey, can I shadow you? And, people will always want to, help you out.
Thank you, Ryan. Loads of questions.
Yeah.
So I have to choose wisely. Lawrence, what are you thinking? But I was interested to sort of start with this question here. So Barbara answered kind of, what do you do to keep up and on top of the media in the way that you need to for your role?
So every PR should doing this is the answers are all of it, but all the national newspapers and also Twitter's a very good source for like constant news. But I think the reason why I choose the ones that I do is because basically I've got a client working in that area. So for example, if I'm working with a car company, I'm going to be reading the motor pages because I'm looking for opportunities to get them in. Same for, you know, if I've got like a fashion brand, I'm going to be reading various fashion magazines to see what they're writing about. And then I can approach those journalists and be like, hey, you've wrote about this. My client also does this. And it's all about creating opportunities for your clients. So the answer's all of them, but definitely all the newspapers. And a lot of the new online stuff, and most things have gone online now as well. And Twitter's a great source for constant news.
Brilliant.
Kind of a follow up on that was the same person. Can you tell us about any professional relationships? So do you also kind of build up, you said about networking.
Yeah.
Have you got contacts that you can find out a bit of information from maybe a bit more effectively?
Yes. So for example, when I did the football campaign, most of the sports journalists that write about football are part of the Football Writers Association. So, you know, we got quite close with the chairman of that association. So then basically, I don't always know what's going to work and what's going to be a story. So if I can just ring up the FWA and be like, look, I'm doing this thing on football. Do you think it's gonna fly? Are you going to cover it? And they can give me a heads up. And if it's not, I can be like, oh, why not? And then I can try and make the story suit them. So yes, you do. It makes your job a lot easier.
And a question from Matthew: what is the process behind rebranding?
So I don't really do too much branding side of things. So you actually have a lot of branding agencies that will do that. But I have worked with companies that have recently rebranded. And so basically it's quite a long process of them working out, first of all, who their audience are and how will it resonate with them, and working backwards. And then I think then design comes into it, then website comes into it. And then you get people like us involved at the back end who will then announce the rebranding. So I can't answer that too well, but there's some very good branding agencies out there that have lots of stuff on that can answer that.
Brilliant.
Awesome. I think there's a few more questions which you definitely want to bring back at the end that are probably relevant to all our speakers. So I'll try and store those up for afterwards. But thank you so much, Ryan. Really, really interesting. And clearly,
Was very interesting.
I think the viewers thought that too.
Cool.
Definitely got some tips on how to market this event after.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Awesome. Right. So it's probably time to move on to our next speaker. So Lawrence, shall I get Zainab in and you can do a brief?
Yes, please. Yes. So, hi, Zainab.
I know she was having a couple of connection issues earlier, so maybe we just pause for a second. I don't know whether we want to sort of wait a couple of seconds, see if she sorts out her connection, or whether we maybe bring in Tom.
Yeah. I think also this might be a good chance to ask the audience. What we would love to hear from you is your feedback over the last 3 days. So feel free to put a comment in the chat on the videos about how you found this, because we want to be back next year, bigger and better, and not produce it in just under 4 weeks. So feel free to let us know how you've found it. Have you found it useful? Have you learned from this? Any feedback would be amazing.
Yeah, also, I'm just, I was going to put it in the comments, but I might as well say it now. So Matthew asked about travel, and I noticed that's come up a few times. So I'll put it to all our speakers at the end about which of their jobs involve travel and various things too. So we'll try and bring that one in. It looks like Zainab might have a few connection issues. So should we switch to Tom? I think.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's adapt.
Always. Hi, Tom. Thank you for jumping in a bit earlier than expected.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I'll just quickly introduce you, Tom.
Go ahead.
And Tom is a senior program manager at the brokerage. I spoke to Tom really at the beginning of when I was organizing this event, and he came to me and said, look, I'd love to be involved in this because actually what I don't see at these careers fairs is people from the charity sector. And I think that's really important because if we're trying to give a wide range of careers, we should be trying to get everything we can into there. So I'm really looking forward to you explaining what you do and how your day-to-day operates. So over to you, Tom.
That's it, yeah. So here's my plan. I'm going to do my prepared remarks in my presentation as well, but as quickly as possible, and get onto questions as quickly as we can. Yeah, my name is Tom. Hello. I work in charity. This is my job. I'm a professional. I'm paid for this. I'm not a volunteer for my charity, and that's an important thing that sometimes I speak to people and they don't realise. You can work for a charity. I do. Let's have the next slide, and I'll tell you about the charity I work for. And here's the thing. I've kind of got two hats here, because I can talk about my job and answer questions about my job. But part of my job is helping people learn about other jobs. So it might be that there's also questions about that I can answer. I'll explain what I mean. So I work for the brokerage, and I manage a team that runs work-related educational programs in partnership with city businesses. And the brokerage is a small charity. We're London-based at the moment. We're Greater London-based, although we've got a small program happening in Liverpool in the autumn as well. So my role covers all sorts of things. I'm part of the senior management team. I'm managing people, making big decisions, but I'm also doing frontline delivery of our actual services as well. So brokerage is a charity. We've been around for 25 years. We exist to solve a problem, and charities exist to solve problems. That's the whole point of them. So this particular charity, we exist to solve the problem that the financial and professional services, things like banking, accountancy, insurance, corporate law, these days big technology firms, they've got a bit of a problem. They don't hire enough people from different backgrounds. Historically, companies like that have hired people from more wealthy backgrounds, from better off backgrounds, and that's a problem because it means they're missing out on good talent. If it's only a small section of society who knows about those jobs, it's only a small section of society that will apply for the jobs, the big companies miss out on talent. People potentially who are watching right now will be missing out on jobs where they could be really using their talents. So we're trying to fix something about society. We're trying to make how you get jobs more fair. So that's the sort of thing that we're trying to do. What does it mean in practice? It means things like, before COVID, I would organise school trips so schools can come and visit banks or insurance companies and learn about them. I've just seen a question turn up in the chat that is exactly the sort of thing I should be talking about. Describe the most recent program I managed. We've had to go online, right? So I've been part of the team that is managing a brand new online mentoring scheme. We've just got it up and running. So we've got about 120 18-year-olds who we've matched up with about 120 professionals who work in banking, insurance, technology, and so on. And they're working together online, one-to-one, where they can develop their skills. Now that is a big logistical thing to make happen. My particular parts in this bring my expertise, because I've done quite a lot of this sort of thing before, helping manage the team so they understand what they're doing. I've also ended up taking on a lot of the IT stuff and building up our infrastructure. So I can tell you more about that as we go. Can we take the next slide, please? Studying or training. So I've got GCSEs. I've got a BTEC diploma, and that was in music. I've got a degree, and that was in music. I've got a PGCE in secondary teaching, and that was in music. So I'm a career change. I only cared about music when I was a teenager. I still very much care about music. It's a big part of my life, but it's not how I earn a living. At each stage, like other people that we've had talking about, I just did the thing that felt right at the time. I never had a grand plan. I was quite good at music, obviously. At drama, I really enjoyed that, and I was quite sciencey. But I really wanted to do the music. So I sort of, at that age, discounted science, went on to study my music diploma. Didn't know what I wanted to do after that. Still really love music, did a music degree. Didn't know what I wanted to do after that, but love music. I've been teaching guitar. I'll teach music for a while. So I've got qualifications that I've finished, and those are there. I'm currently studying as well for an apprenticeship in data analytics. I can say more about that. Apprenticeships are not just a thing you do when you're young. I mean, I'm not old yet either, but I'm also studying for apprenticeships. I'll talk about that later, maybe. There's my educational background, very music focused. That did not hold me back, but obviously it informed my career. I was a music teacher for about 7 years. In fact, coincidence, Lawrence told me when we were getting ready for this that I've actually taught a relative of his who was in one of my music classes. So I was teaching music, but then I kept on having this experience where I would meet my students and they hadn't made a good transition from education into their next steps, into university. I'd meet kids who were really good kids and got really good grades, and then they drop out. Or they finish university and then they weren't quite sure what career to go into. They were doing okay jobs, but not really, impressive jobs that really made the best of their talents. So I made a career change based on my values, based on what mattered to me. And I went to work for the Access Project for about 4 years. The Access Project helped people get into university. Then I wanted a promotion, wanted to be a manager. In small organizations, promotion usually means moving to another company as well. And I moved to the brokerage, another company, another charity, who focus on helping people get into work. So what's the takeaway from this slide? I made a career change based on my values and what mattered to me. In the short term, it was not a good move financially. I was fine, but it did not make me money at all. But it was still the right thing to do for me based on what I was interested in. Let's take a look at the next slide. My proudest professional achievement to date. So this is going to sound nebulous because it's not one thing. It's being able to look back and realize the organization I work in now is completely different to the organization I joined 4 years ago. And I love that. I love the sense that I've been able to change my organization for the better and make other people's lives better, because I've helped a load of people get into careers that they might not have even heard of before. Really happy about that. And I've helped our organization. So I've helped my colleagues help other people. So it's not one thing. It's 4 years of accumulated hard work that's got me there. Let's take the next slide. Roles and skills and knowledge that are essential for this role in this industry. So I said we're a really small charity. I've, since I left teaching, only worked for small organizations. What does that mean? It's really good because it means you can change a whole organization if you persuade 2 or 3 people that you're right. But it's really difficult because it means you have to do a bit of everything. So you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to say, you know what, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to learn how to do it because we need to do it. And there's no one else on the team who can answer these questions. So I've had to learn a lot about data science, which I mentioned. I've had to learn a lot about IT, which has been important. Good knowledge of program design and delivery. So you need to know the end point is 100 people having mentors over this summer. What are all the steps that are going to get me there? What do people need to know? What IT systems do I need to build? What are the dangers that I need to think about to be ready for when they come up? And then really importantly, clear understanding of your own values. Charities exist to change the world. Charities exist to put themselves out of business, because if we do our job properly, the world will be fixed. We won't have our jobs anymore. We need to find new jobs. So if you're going to work in charity, you need to understand what really matters to you. And if there's something that really matters to you, maybe you should think about working in charity. So just as a random example, Black Lives Matter is something that's in the news. Of course, it's really important to lots of people. There are charities that do work around that. There are charities that try and persuade politicians to make things better. There are charities that try and help out people on the front line, So our charity is not primarily about people who are Black and from other ethnic minorities, but because we're in London, in practice, the majority of people we work with are. So that's an important issue to us, and we feel like we're doing a little bit that can help, and that matters to us. Our values matter. So I think values really cross over with charity as well as other areas. Cool. Do I have any other slides? As a teenager, I wish I knew all of that. Reach out. Yeah, everyone's talked about networking. That matters. Volunteer. Absolutely. Particularly in charity. Some of these charities, yeah, there are paid jobs, but you can go work for them for free if you've got the time. And that can be really useful to learn how they work, to learn about whether their values actually fit with yours. It's a great way of showing your interests and passion and finding out what they're doing. And I think what I'd add to this slide, which I should have put on, that's occurred to me now, is everyone says follow your dreams, follow what you're passionate about. Yeah, but hey, we've got it there. It doesn't need to refer to your professional life. So what I mean is I love music. It's really central to what I do. I still do it now. If you Google my name, you're going to see my music stuff. I made my own life difficult in my head because I didn't realize for a while that doesn't need to be what I'm trying to make a living from. I can still do it, really enjoy it, and get fulfillment from it. But you know what? I can rest easy because being a musician is really difficult financially. Don't need to do that. That's my dream still. I still love it. I'm doing it. I'm happy about it. But I've also got these other professional things where I am fulfilled professionally. So, I'm not saying don't be a musician. I'm not saying don't be an artist. Those are really good. You don't need to have your dream as the main professional thing to do. Life's more complicated than that. How can attendees find out more about getting into this industry? We talked about volunteering. Definitely do that. A good place to just find out more information, charityjob.co.uk or maybe .com. Go take a look at that. That's useful. And then talk to people. Not enough young people, particularly for the young men who are watching this, not enough young teenage men, reach out and just ask questions. My job is to tell people about other jobs, and I very rarely get people reaching out via LinkedIn or via my email address, which I think is on our website, to say, hey, tell me about your job, answer some questions for me. Generally speaking, for some reason, young women are more likely to do so than young men, I find in my experience. I'm not quite sure why, but I'll put it out there as a thing to think about. Cool. Do I have any other slides? I'm not sure that I do, in which case, hopefully that's useful, but I noticed there were loads of questions, so it seems sensible to answer some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. The questions have been flying in, so we'll bring a few of those up along the way. And actually, let's start with a question from a young male.
Good.
Based on your experience, what was the most effective business partnership? So obviously you have, as a brokerage, partnered up with a lot of sort of businesses. Which ones have been most successful?
So that's a really interesting one. I guess the kinds of partnerships that work the best are the ones that marry up business needs with values. So what I mean is we're trying to change the world, right? The business needs to get that, yeah, that means we're trying to change things, not just look good from a PR perspective. And I'm not being mean about our last PR guy. PR is important, but it needs to be a means to an end. So we've sometimes had companies who just, they want to get a few kids in because it'll look good and they can have some nice pictures. And that's fine. It's not a bad thing at all. You've helped people learn. But what really matters is when the company says, oh, you know what? That's important. We're going to make it last a long time. We're committed to it. So we've got a relationship with Lloyd's of London, for example. That's an insurance marketplace, really big employer, insurance, really big employer. And they're bought in, and we've been working with them for years. And they're trying to change how that whole industry works. And we're a small part of that, obviously. So long-lasting, values-based.
Because you said at the beginning that obviously you're trying to sort of increase the diversity and representation in companies in that area. And actually that the best thing I think you pointed out was they're missing out on talent. And I think that's the really important thing. It's something around gender equality and also race equality there is a financial successful business aspect here that if you don't have a representative workforce, you are missing out on the ability to be a successful company. And I think that's a really important bit.
Absolutely. Companies need to hire fairly. Not because it is a nice thing to do, but not because it's a nice thing to do. Companies are amoral. They exist to make money. That's fair enough. they need to hire fairly because it means they get the best people. If you've got a diverse workforce, it means your customers are going to see themselves reflected in your business. They're more likely to hire you, buy your products. It means your workforce are going to feel like they fit in here. They're going to be happier. They're going to work harder, you know? So yeah, charity is all about changing the world. It's being nice, but you can look at it from a purely cold-hearted business point of view, and you come to the same conclusions because we're right.
Yeah. And then we've got this question, which is, what's the difference between governance and management in the context of a program?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Governance and management. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. High level stuff. Governance is being the person or the people or the group at the top who are overseeing. So they're setting the values and the boundaries, maybe the big aims. That's governance. We're going to make things, in the case of our kind of programs, governance question is, are we sticking to our values and making sure that this company is doing things fairly? A management question is, what are the steps we take to get there? So what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3? And then as we're going along, are we getting those steps done on the time scale? Are we meeting our deadlines? Are we getting our tasks done? That's the difference between those two things, governance and management.
Thank you.
It's a good question in terms. I think there's a lot of terminology we can throw out as adults because we've encountered it a few times. We've gone away and searched for it, but I think it's really good. I encourage everyone watching to ask if terminology comes up that they want clarifying, or I think there's so many acronyms, like little letter combinations that we all use all the time in different jobs. And when you first go into that, when you first go into the world of an office or work, and everyone's throwing these terms around and you feel like you should know them, it can be really difficult. So good questions.
Really good questions. And then just the last one, which I think is a really good one as well, is being a music teacher for year 7. Did you learn anything from that role which still assists you today at the brokerage? Because I think a lot of times we don't realize that our teaching skills can also transcend outside of education as well. Yeah, absolutely. So there's some obvious stuff. So look, career tip, I mean this honestly, if you're not sure what you want to do and you've got a degree, so you finish uni, go teach for a couple of years. I mean that honestly, because I've had to teach year 8 last thing on a sunny Friday when they don't want to be in my classroom. And if you have done that, nothing else in life is scary. So honestly, a couple of years teaching, really good for you. Difficult but good. But more than that, obviously I use my teaching skills, being able to stand up, speak confidently, all that sort of stuff. Obviously I use that a lot in my job. So that's an obvious thing where I'm using it. But as a music teacher, you organise loads of school trips. And I do that in my job now, albeit from the other side. As a music teacher, you have to organise all the instrumental teachers, the singing teacher that comes in, the guitar teacher that comes in. That's exactly the same as organising my volunteers, those mentors that I mentioned, for example. So that's the same skill. And then I've discovered during this COVID thing, COVID has meant we've had to change everything in terms of how we work overnight. And we've had to improvise, and we've had to do things that we are not comfortable with. Now, I've got a background as a musician and a music teacher and as a performer. I am really used to going on stage feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm only half prepared. This is terrifying. What am I doing? But appearing to everyone watching me like I know what I'm doing, like I've got it all under control. And that being used to that feeling, I've realized not everyone can do it. Not everyone's used to it. Some people like to be really, really well planned, well prepared, and having to kind of slightly fake it and slightly appear confident when you're not. I've realized that's a really, really important skill that my performance background has brought to my current job that I don't think I would have. I'm naturally a very shy person. I naturally don't want to talk to strangers, but I've had to develop all these skills and learn all these skills through performing that are absolutely vital to my current job. If I had my way, if I was king of the world, drama would be a compulsory subject for everyone, at least to GCSE, maybe A-level,
because you would be forced to practice all of that. Stand up, talk to strangers, communicate, make yourself heard, and even if it feels scary, you appear calm. So yeah, really, really important. My music background, really important for my current role.
And I think that's really important what you've just shared with us, because a lot of our audience are quite young and they do think, oh, I don't have any experience, but they have a lot of, in their short life, a lot of life experiences that they can actually draw out and say, these are the skills that I've developed. So that's really important. That might be you being the senior prefect, is what skills did you develop in that role? Or being even a classroom monitor, I don't know. There's always a lesson there, and there's always something that you've learned, and bring that out as well when you are talking about going for a job or contacting someone. So yeah, thank you for that, Tom. That's been absolutely brilliant. I'm really enjoyed it. And guys, please keep the comments coming in, or questions as well. We're going to pop you backstage for now, Tom, and then bring you back on in about 10 minutes with the rest of the panel and have a general Q&A. Thank you.
Tom.
So
okay. We have last speaker. Yeah, who's going to take it? Who's going to take it?
we've got Zainab.
Yeah, she brings Zainab in and
Yeah.
stuff.
Let's hope.
Over
Fingers crossed. Yes, is she there?
Hi,
How are
I'm
you?
here. Hi, I'm good, thank you. Can you? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All good.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Sorry, I've been having connectivity issues all day, well, all morning. So I've been coming in and out. Apologize for that. But it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to come and speak.
Thank you for giving up your time today.
You're so welcome.
I'm sure the kids, I need to stop saying kids, the young adults, the young people,
Yeah.
get some great stuff from this today. So Zainab is a movement manager and also is a former parliamentary researcher as well. Okay, so we're going to hand over to you. Guys, please keep the questions coming in. There are some fantastic questions coming in. Honestly, you guys amaze me every day with your questions. I mean, the last question we gave to Tom, that was a hard one. So
that's tough.
So hopefully they go easy on you, Zainab.
I hope so.
All right, and good luck and thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here talking to you all. So my name is Zainab Aston-Ramu. I am a movement manager for an organisation called Activate. And Activate is a feminist movement really trying to diversify politics. So our role is to fund amazing, brilliant, phenomenal women who are kind of community activists. So doing really important work within the communities from underrepresented backgrounds. So that's women who are Black, Asian, or other ethnic minorities, women who are disabled, or women who are from low to no income backgrounds. And our goal is really to fund them to fund their election campaigns to stand in various levels in politics. So whether that's to stand as an MP, whether that's to stand as a London Assembly member, whether that's to stand as a councillor in their local communities or constituencies, that's the work that I'm doing there. And my role really is to grow and inspire and encourage our network. So we're a really small team, and so we need a lot of help from people who are married to our vision, so to speak, of making Parliament or making politics in general more diverse and representative, because that's the important thing, right? We want politics that serves us, and politics and politicians who represent us and understand what it's like to be, for example, a Black woman working her way through society, or a Black man, or an Asian man, or, you know, we just want people with really good lived experiences working for us and serving us in institutions such as Parliament or local council. And so my role there really is to increase our membership and get people on board with our mission to help us reach our goal, which is to get more of these women into politics. I'm there to inspire and encourage them to get involved. And I'm also involved in increasing the diversity. As I said, it's really important for us that we're representative. So ensuring that we have people within the movement who are, you know, from BAME backgrounds, from who are disabled, or who are from low to no income backgrounds, to really help us inform our work. So my role really entails a lot of community organising and outreach work, and again, managing volunteers to help us reach our goals. So that's my current job. But I really do want to talk about my past role as a parliamentary researcher, because that's another area that is that I don't think many young people really understand, that it's a possibility for them to go to work in a place such as Parliament. So in my previous role as a parliamentary researcher, I worked for a Labour Member of Parliament, and she's now retired, which is why I'm not working there at the moment. But in that role, I would have to produce policy responses for constituents. So one thing that people don't really necessarily know, especially young people, is that you can actually contact your MP or contact your councillors. And, you know, in every office, there is a policy caseworker and there is a constituency caseworker. So the constituency caseworker works on the real life issues on the ground for constituents. So for example, if you had an issue with housing, if you had an issue with immigration, if you had an issue accessing your local GP, for example, those are the kind of issues that the constituency caseworker would work on. And the policy caseworker, which was part of my role, would be the person who would respond to you if you had parliamentary or political questions, such as if you had a question that you wanted to ask your MP, such as, we really need more funding for our schools. Could you please ask the Secretary of State for Education what he intends to do to increase funding to schools? Then that's the question that I would deal with. And so I would be responding on behalf of my member to your question, and I would be raising those questions on behalf of my member to the Secretary of State or any ministers that are in Parliament. Another thing that I would do would be write speeches for my member of Parliament. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Parliament TV, where you see all your MPs kind of in one room, kind of shouting at each other and having discussions and debates. So when there is a debate that's happening, so for example, my member would be speaking, sometimes she'd ask me to write quick speeches for her or write interventions. And an intervention is when, for example, there's a debate happening or you are asking the government some questions, and sometimes you see MPs like standing up and sitting back down, standing up and sitting back down. That's basically their indication to the speaker that they want to speak. So, and then the speaker chooses which MP speaks at what time. And when they are speaking like that, they're intervening. So they're asking the minister or the shadow secretary of state, the Secretary of State or the Prime Minister a particular question, or adding to the debate through an intervention. I'd also do lots of drafting of parliamentary questions. So again, there's various ways of submitting a question to the government. So you could do it within the House, which is oral questions when you're speaking and asking them directly a question, or you could have written parliamentary questions, which are kind of written on a piece of software, and it goes to the minister or the government or whoever you're trying to speak to, and then they have to give you an answer back. So I've written loads and loads of written questions, but also drafted some oral ones too. I have also conducted research for my minister. For my member of Parliament, sorry. So that would include if, again, she had a debate that she was going to, or she wanted to write a speech, or she was going somewhere to deliver a speech, but she didn't want me to write the speech. I would just get all the information on that particular issue there for her so that she could draw on it during her conversations or during her speeches in the House of Parliament or elsewhere. I did lots of media work, so writing lots of press releases for my member of Parliament. So whenever she did something in the constituency or she did something in Parliament, I would clip those videos and put it onto her website or put it onto her social media. Facebook was the channel that she used to do lots of parliamentary work. So I'd make sure that all of the updates for the press, but also for the constituents, were up on her website. And, you know, every day is different. So sometimes I'd plan her diary, especially if her diary manager wasn't there. So I'd be the person who kind of, if you called to say, I really want to meet, you know, if you're from an organization and you called our office to ask, you know, I really want to meet said member to talk about anything from immigration to children's welfare to housing. Again, I'd be the person saying, oh, she is available, she isn't available, let's set a date. So, you know, working in Parliament and being a parliamentary researcher was phenomenal. It was amazing. And every day was very, very different. And as you can imagine, being in Parliament was quite an exciting place to work. And if I could have the next slide, please.
I would just, if I may, Zainab, just one question that there's lots of questions coming in, but one was from one of our viewers. Would you recommend us to contact our MP? I just, for the young people watching, if they want to maybe politics feels a long way away from them. What would the process be for them of impacting, contacting their MP and getting involved?
Right, this is such a good question. So as you can tell by my giddy excitement, I'm very, very, very passionate about engaging people with politics, especially young people. That's one of my passion areas. And I think as we go on, you'll learn more about what I do to do that in terms of like speaking to young people about getting involved. But you can literally contact your MP or your councillor about absolutely anything. Any concerns that you have. The best way to find out who your MP is to go to a website called They Work For You and type in, so I think it's theyworkforyou.com or something like that, and type in your postcode, and that will give you a profile of your MP, and it basically gives you the constituency that they work in. So when I say constituency, it's basically where you live, the area where you live, or the area that the MP represents. So once you find that, you'll find their email address, you'll find their contact details, you'll find their address as well in terms of the House of Commons address, where you can write letters to them as well. But you can literally contact them at any time about anything. So if you have any concerns about COVID or otherwise, definitely do reach out to your MP, because what they get back to you, basically, is what I'm saying. And when you write to your MP, it's really important that you put your postcode and your door number, because it helps them understand that it gives them the evidence that they need that you actually are their constituent. So MPs are only going to respond to their own constituents. It gets a bit trickier if they are a shadow Secretary of State, for example. So I think they have more leeway in responding to everybody, but you should always go through your MP. And the other people that you can contact are your local councillors. And again, if you go onto your local your local government's website, so basically if you live in Greenwich, go onto the Greenwich Council website. Again, there'll be an option for you to put in your postcode to find out who your councillor is, and your councillor deals with really, really localized issues for you. So if you're having trouble with your neighbour, for example, you can contact your councillor. So yeah, there's a range of different places that you can speak to. And then there's even, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just to explain what constituent is.
Okay. Yeah. So a constituent is somebody like me who lives in a particular area that's looked after by an MP. So when I refer to constituency, I'm referring to the area that you live in that is looked after by a particular MP. And if I say constituent, then I'm talking about you who lives in that area.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. And the other quick thing I wanted to mention is another way that you can kind of hold elected people to account, because that's what you're doing when you're writing to your MP or your councillors, is you're holding people that you might not have voted for them, but you're holding people who are elected to represent you in Parliament or in local government to account, which is something that we absolutely should do as citizens who live in the UK. But the other way that you can kind of hold people to account is the mayor. If you live in London, then you or the people around you have elected a mayor. Our mayor at the moment is Sadiq Khan, and so we can hold him to account, and we can ask him questions too, and you can do that through writing to the London Assembly. But also, you also are represented by London Assembly members. So that's another layer of where you can hold people to account and understand what's going on. So the London Assembly is basically, they're responsible for London-wide issues. So if you have any London concerns, for example, if you wanted to ask the mayor how he is dealing with policing in London, then you could direct that question to him too, or you can direct it to your London Assembly members. And the way you do that is go onto the General London Assembly website. Or if you just put London mayor and London into Google, it'll come up with a website where it'll give you all the information you need to find out who your London Assembly members are and how you can get in contact with them. Sorry, This is a lot. This is a lot of information for you guys, but this is what we do.
That's fantastic. No problem. I think me and Ben will disappear, so we can let you jump back into your presentation.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought you might want to pick up on that one, so I thought I'd bring it in. I'll let you get back on with it.
Thank you. So if we could go on to the next slide. So what studying or training have I had for my role? So I think Imogen was talking about it earlier, where she said that she did a lot of different things, and I am exactly like that. But let's go into what I studied, because I think some of the you might see some of the subjects and be like, what, graphics, performance studies? How did she go from that to like politics or working for a charity? So I started off, like most of us here, with GCSEs. I think I graduated from secondary school with 11 GCSEs, including math, science, and English. And to be fair, and to be completely honest, at that point, I didn't actually know what I wanted to do. I knew I was interested in politics. I knew that I was interested in human rights, and I knew that maybe that was something I wanted to go and think about and do as a career. But if I'm being 100% honest, I didn't choose my A-levels based on my career. I chose my A-levels based on what I really enjoyed. And at this particular time, I had visions of becoming a graphic designer, funnily enough. So I went on, I really enjoyed English language and literature, so I studied that, performance studies. I love singing, dancing and acting, and it's something that I did a lot at secondary school, so I wanted to study an A-level in that. Again, two subjects that I thoroughly enjoyed. Graphic design, as at that time I really wanted to get into graphic designing, and the sixth form that I went to was a sixth form called SFX, St. Francis Xavier College, and I went to their open day and absolutely fell in love with their arts and graphics department, and that's literally another reason why I chose that subject. Psychology was an oddball one because initially I had wanted to study economics. I don't know where that came from. It's not a passion area of mine. It's just, I think I looked at what it could entail, and I thought I could do it, and I thought it might sound good, and also because I was doing things that I really enjoyed, I thought that my parents might take me a bit more seriously if I chose economics. But unfortunately, I didn't. You had to have a B in maths at GCSE, and I didn't get a B, I got a C, so I couldn't take that subject, and they were oversubscribed, so they suggested either sociology or psychology. And I had studied sociology at GCSE level, but really actually was quite interested in psychology, so I chose that instead. So I graduated then with 4 A-levels, A to C grade. And actually, what is not here that I should have probably spoken about and put on here is that I didn't go to university straight away. So I graduated with my graphics design A-level and went on to the University of Arts to do a foundation degree in, I think it was arts and I can't remember the name of the course now, but it was something to do with arts, and it included graphics. Because, like I said, I wanted to be a graphic designer. So I actually went to Camberwell College for a year to study arts and specialize in graphic design. At the end of that year, I really decided that graphics was not for me. And I remembered how much I absolutely loved English and language and literature at A-level and at GCSE level, and so decided to take the leap and do a degree in English language and literature at the University of Leicester. And you know, even at that point, I had known that, again, I was interested in politics and I was interested in human rights, but I didn't really want to study politics. I didn't really want to study law. And I thought that the course outline for English language and literature really showed me actually that there was a way that I could still do the course, English language and literature, and find a way into whatever career I wanted to do after. So lots of people were saying to me, oh, are you interested in like becoming a teacher, or do you want to be a writer? And I'd be like, those are cool careers, but I've still got my eye on, like, you know, working in politics or working in the human rights sector somehow, and I'll find a way to bridge the gap. And I did, and I'll talk to you a little bit of a bit about how I did that. And then after I graduated, I went on to work somewhere, and whilst I was working, another organisation started doing my master's in international politics and human rights. And what I will say about masters is if you ever decide that you want to do a master's, be very, very clear on why you're doing it. Otherwise, it'd be a waste of money and a waste of your time. So for me, I knew I wanted to do a master's in international politics and human rights because I absolutely knew that I hadn't studied politics or law or anything related to human rights undergraduate degree level, I knew that I needed a degree to bridge that gap into human rights or politics. But more specifically, I wanted to get an understanding and a grounding in politics and human rights. So I knew very much that this would be a learning opportunity for me to develop all the skills and knowledge I needed to be an expert in my field. And so I had specific things that I was looking at. I wanted a course that was going to look at women's rights that could really allow me to delve into that world. I wanted to look at the continent of Africa, and I also wanted to look at the Middle East. And so those were the reasons why I studied my master's. I had very specific reasons for getting into it, and I knew that it would be a gap into what I wanted to do next. And then later on, I got a qualification from the LSE, it's a university in London, for a course in women's human rights. So again, that was a very specific reason for doing that course. And also I didn't pay for it, my workplace at the time paid for it. So that was just another opportunity for me to delve into and get the experience and expertise that I needed in that specific area. Next slide, please. Okay, so where have I worked previously? I'm currently working as a movement manager at Activate. That's my current job. And I know I talked to you, I said I was going to come back to this, but after I graduated from university, I was in that really, I think everybody on the panel, I hope anyway, can attest to the fact that sometimes if you don't have a specific career or job in mind after you finish university, you can kind of feel you feel as if you're in this limbo state where you're kind of like, where do I go next? Where do I go next? And even though I knew I wanted to get into human rights and politics, I still needed a job because I wasn't there yet. So I kind of fell into recruitment consulting and I didn't enjoy it. And so what then happened is I left my job after a year and a half or so, and I started working as a volunteer for world-renowned human rights organization Amnesty International. Amnesty International, as I said, is a human rights organization. It's one of the world-leading ones. They're very well respected in all sectors and in all spheres, especially in politics. And I started as a volunteer first. I volunteered with Amnesty for a whole year before I got an opportunity to work as a paid member of staff. And that is one piece of advice I would definitely give. I know there's a lot of controversy around unpaid internships and things like that. And I'm hoping that the charity sector is going to move into the direction of paying volunteers, because I absolutely do believe that volunteers should be paid. But at the time I was an unpaid intern or volunteer, and I worked on a really, really fun and innovative and great projects. And I got to meet amazing human rights journalists and lots of human rights activists. It was phenomenal. And so after that period of a year of volunteering, I applied for an internal role, and it was a role called it was a role in the fundraising team, and I was the trust and corporate partnerships coordinator. And what that meant was I was fundraising for Amnesty's important campaigns, important research, important projects through trusts and foundations, basically rich people that have lots of money and they build foundations to give that money away, and through corporate relationships. So I built corporate relationships with SOAS University, an ethical bank called Triodos, an ethical gas and electric company called Ecotricity. So that was great. But whilst I was doing that, I did that job for about 4 years. But whilst I was doing that, again, I realized I wanted to be in the more human rights facing roles. And so I started networking within the organization. There is nobody at that organization that can say that I didn't come and talk to them or bother them at some point. And it was literally just because I'm a friendly person, but also because I wanted to get a taste for what it was like to work in campaigns, what it was like to work in the advocacy team, or what it was like to work in the research team. So I did a few roles within Amnesty. I worked on the Human Rights Defenders campaign in the initial stages, and then got the opportunity to be a research assistant at Amnesty International, our big secretariat, which is kind of like our home office, I guess. And that was revolutionary for me because it completely spun what I wanted to do on its head. Sorry. So I was working on a research mission looking at violence against women online, and the specific research was looking at how Twitter could be a toxic place for women. And it was a really intersectional piece of research. And when I say intersectional, it means like thinking about people and their different identities that they hold. So if you are a BAME person who's also a woman, who could be from the LGBTI community or could be disabled or anything like that. So looking at what it means to be a woman with all the different identities that is attached to that, and how you can be attacked online because of who you are, what race you are, what religion you belong to, etc. So that was so amazing. And I spent about a year there doing that work. And you can find the research on Amnesty's website, or if you could just put toxic Twitter into Google, you'll find it there. Really, really an amazing read. And being able to do that at Amnesty was such an honor and a privilege. But then it got to a point where I was kind of thinking, Amnesty is a great organization. I've done human rights work. This is brilliant, but they are very international looking. And I really wanted to start focusing on my own community where I live, London, because human rights abuses don't just happen abroad. They happen in the UK too. So what's going on in the UK, and how can I tackle it? And so I was on the hunt for looking for more localized work, looking at more community-based opportunities. And so another website to think of is a website called workforanmp.com. That particular website is a website where you can look for jobs or internships with MPs, but also charities across the board. And so I saw that my local MP was advertising for a parliamentary researcher, and I applied, and then I got it. So it was really interesting in the job interview, because I had to kind of talk about all the transferable skills I had up to date, including working at a human rights organization, but also my university work, and pull it into and pull it through the interview to tell them I can absolutely be a parliamentary researcher, because I've done it. I've done similar things before, and this is how I do it. Next slide, please. So my proudest professional achievement to date, I can think of 3, because I couldn't whittle it down. But so working for Amnesty International as a world-renowned human rights organization, obviously working in Parliament, because that is an experience and a half, and it helps me really understand politics in the UK and how it works. But also I got the opportunity to graduate from the Labour Party's Bernie Grant Leadership Programme, which was an initiative that was looking at how we can make politics more diverse by kind of training a group of BAME, so Black, Asian, other ethnic minority people, into how to become councillors, members of Parliament, London Assembly members, and become really active in politics. So that was amazing opportunity for me. Next one. What skills are essential for this role in industry? So I think for all of my roles, working in charity, working in politics, I'm also working where I'm working now, but research and communication skills are so important. Being able to articulate what you mean and articulate really complex ideals and issues is really important, and being able to articulate that to different audience members is really important. But also being able to write fluently is essential, because you're doing a lot of research, you're writing speeches, you're writing questions, you're writing newsletters and campaigns. So campaign and advocacy skills. So being able to be persuasive, being able to network, being able to talk to people, being able to convince and debate your point of view is really important. Political knowledge and understanding, so really understanding what politics is in the UK, understanding the political structures that exist. And this all sounds really complicated, but I promise you it really isn't. And there are lots of resources that I can share with Lawrence and Ben later, that hopefully they can share with you, just to kind of break down some of the more difficult terminology and knowledge that you might need. Next slide, please. As a teenager, I wish I knew. Keep your fire and don't lose sight of who you are. You are relevant, you are capable, and you are more than enough. I think that as young people, well, for me as a young person, I was full of fire, and I just, went all guns blazing all the time. But as I got older, the fire kind of left. I think because life kind of throws things at you that you are navigating, so you kind of change who you are a little bit. But the most important thing is just keep your hunger, keep your fire, and just know that you can do anything that you want to do, regardless of who's telling you that you cannot. So the next slide. How can you find out more about getting into your industry? So there's lots of different ways. As I mentioned the Mayor of London initiative before. They have a peer outreach program. so you can reach out to them and understand what it's like to work in the mayor's office. But also, if you have any issues about London, they can teach you how to get more involved. There's also the Youth Parliament, which is kind of like the young people's version of Parliament as it exists now. And also get involved in your local political party. I think one of the questions from Kirsty at the moment is, what advice would you give someone who doesn't really know much about politics but has an interest in it? If you have an interest in it, then you just have to seek out the information. Like I said, I will share some resources with Lawrence and Ben. Hopefully they can pass it on to you. But get involved. Talk to your MP. Right, if there's an issue that's concerning you in society, write to your MP, write to your councillor. Get involved with the peer outreach network at the Mayor of London's office. There's a website there, because they can also give you an understanding on how to get into politics or understand it a bit better. And just, you already have the tools that you need to get into politics, because I'm sure that you're fired up about some issue, whether it's youth unemployment or, knife crime in the capital, or the fact that your school isn't getting enough funding, and you can see that, and you want the government to do more about it. There's so many ways that you're probably already passionate about politics, but you don't realize it's politics. But yeah, just reach out to your MPs, reach out to your local councillors. Again, if you have a political party that you prefer, so the political parties that I can name: Labour, Conservatives, Lib Dem, the Women Equalities Party, the Women Equality Party, the Green Party, reach out to them, because they also have youth divisions that you can join. So there's lots of stuff that you can be doing in your communities with your political party, if that is if that's something that interests you, and you're looking for a way to get into politics. I think that's it. Sorry, so many. I talked a lot.
No, there is definitely one more slide I want to give you the chance to talk to in a moment. But just another couple of questions as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to try and capture them while we've got some potential young people who can get into politics here.
Yeah, I need all of you to get into politics. That's what I want you to do. You are without being cheesy, you are the future. So you're the one. You're the change that we seek, and we need a lot of change at the moment.
So yeah, Laura's question was: is it possible to change a law?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So the really great thing about campaigning and advocacy is that those are the vehicles that you need that could potentially change a law. So when we're talking about campaigning and advocacy, we're talking about building public pressure behind a particular cause, and making as much noise as possible to get the attention of the people who are in government. So there is absolutely there are ways that you can change the law through advocacy and campaigning. It's just not a quick fix. So you might be campaigning and doing advocacy work, and advocacy work is basically engaging with politicians about these issues, right? For 20 years before a law is changed. But it's about keeping up the momentum and keeping up the pressure and getting as many voices, influential voices, in a room as possible, and getting them to slowly but surely change their minds, which could change or have a positive impact on a law that's already existing. Or it could be that they create new laws or add to existing laws to change them to take into account the issue that you're particularly concerned about or campaigning for.
So you need patience and determination.
Yes, I mean, when I first started at Amnesty, there was a campaign called the Arms Trade Treaty, and they had been working on that particular campaign for 20 years. So, change is not going to come overnight with politics because it's such an old institution. So you have to have patience, and you just have to have motivation to keep going, because the minute that you stop adding pressure is the minute that it falls off the agenda for the politicians, and you absolutely don't want that if you're passionate about the issue that you're seeking to change.
And I think that applies to life, that change doesn't come overnight. And I think sometimes young people can be too hard on themselves, and they're like, I want this to happen tomorrow. It does take years, days, and dedication. So that's a key thing for me. Yeah.
Absolutely,
so we'll just let you talk about your advice, and then we're going to bring you back on stage. So any pearls of wisdom you want to drop to the crowd?
Yes, so as you kind of heard from me, and I think Imogen also alluded to it, and I think maybe Tom, is your journey. As you know from my journey, I took a very convoluted journey to get to where I am today. I tried loads of different things. I wanted to be a graphic designer and decided, oh no, that's not for me. And I was like, actually, let me try this human rights thing out. It's something I'm really interested and passionate about. Still in that space, I'm still really passionate about human rights, and I bring it into my politics. But you know, trust yourself and trust your journey. Some people are like, I want to be a lawyer, and they study law and they kind of get there. But even that is a fallacy in itself, because everyone I know who studied law didn't get there immediately. Again, it was like a 5-year wait before they actually became a solicitor or barrister. But there's a more direct route. And some people have multiple routes that they take to end at particular journeys or in different places. So I've had a career as a recruitment consultant. I've had a career in politics, well, I have a career in politics, and I've had a career / have a career in human rights, right? So that's 3 different areas already. And who knows what I'm going to be tomorrow? Maybe I'll be a writer. You just don't know. So just believe in yourself, believe in your journey, and just fight for it and just keep going. Don't compare yourself to others. There's a phrase that says comparison is the thief of joy. If you're looking to your left and you're looking to your right and you're like, that person's getting so much further ahead than me, then you kind of demotivate yourself to actually achieve your goals. Keep your head down, stay focused, and surround yourself with people who are going to champion you, because I'm telling you, and you don't even know me, that you absolutely have got this. You can do anything you put your mind to. Yes, it will be tough. Yes, it will be hard. It's been hard and tough for me. I know someone has said something about being a Black female in this space. I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to pretend to you that it hasn't come with its challenges. Yes, I've experienced racism. Yes, I've experienced discrimination, but you can't let that knock you. And I know it's really difficult to say, because I've definitely let it knock me a few times, but you just have to keep pushing forward. And if you're surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, then there is nothing that you cannot achieve. And again, on that note, if people are telling you that you can't, sidestep them. They don't even matter. You have to again be around people that are going to tell you that you can. And again, if no one is telling you that you can, I'm telling you that you absolutely can.
Love it. I'm absolutely loving that energy. Yeah, amazing. Just want to say a big thank you to Careers Hub, who's been in the chat as well, echoing the stuff that you're saying as well, and actually talking about the steps of becoming a young mayor as well. So Zainab, absolutely fantastic. Love your passion. Brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, and they can follow me anywhere. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. If you find me on LinkedIn, just send me a message if you need any careers advice. I'm happy to give you any careers advice to get into human rights or politics. That's what I'm here for. I live in service to young people, get them into this space.
Love it.
I'm just putting your Instagram, Twitter, and also your Linktree links that you shared with us into the comments.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant. What we'll do is, because of time, we'll bring everyone back on stage, and we'll ask some general questions as well to you guys. Hi, Ryan.
Hiya, how you doing?
And we'll just get Tom. Unfortunately, whoops. There we go. Unfortunately, Imogen's had to leave. She's got another meeting. But she has said, feel free to send her questions on LinkedIn, on her social media as well, and she'll get back to you on that. Guys, just need to say a big thank you to you. It's a great way to start our second to last session. I'm really sad about this. It's just been going great. But Ben, if we get a few questions from the audience, and I've got some general questions I'd like to ask to the panel.
Yeah, so I was going to pick up actually a question from Bailey, which is probably worth. I think it was during Zainab's, but just for everyone, like I think for young people, it's hard to know the range of jobs. And I think Ryan, you definitely mentioned, I wish I'd known just the plethora of different jobs out there. But yeah, what surprised you about your job in recent times? Little one to ponder. For me, it's getting to do things like this.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, day to day, I do a lot of training with teachers. Actually, day to day, I don't do as much training. I organize a lot of training from one room in my house. So things have changed. But yeah, anything you want to go with that surprised you about your job?
I mean, the thing that surprised me is exactly how difficult it is managing other people. My team are great. I'm not saying that, they're not difficult people, they're nice people. Even so, that takes a whole set of skills in terms of understanding other people, being emotionally intelligent, that I've had to work at and learn at. And I hadn't even thought that's a set of skills that you can practice, like riding a bike. And it definitely is. I'm probably not naturally good at it. I've had to develop those skills. So that really surprised me. So if you're the sort of person who's good at that, getting on with your friends, making sure everyone else is friends, understanding people's feelings, all that sort of stuff, those are difficult skills. I was surprised how much I needed to work on them.
And like you said, those are things that you sometimes have to work at and happen over time as well. And learning from situations, I think that's a key thing. Make sure you're able to learn from situations if they didn't go as you intended them to. It's like, what can I take from this?
I've made all the mistakes.
Can I go? Oh, perfect, thank you. So one of the things that has surprised me, and this is where I'm completely brutally honest with you all, because I think that it's important to be brutally honest to young people about what the outside world is like and what the working world is like. But I think being let down by colleagues that you trusted with particular projects or particular issues, and the way that you navigate that is just always having a plan B, to be honest. Like always have a plan B for any situation that you're in the workplace, just because anything can happen at any time, and you don't want to be left on the back foot if something does happen. So if, for example, someone said they were going to come and speak and then they didn't show up for an external event, just making sure that you have information to fill in that gap, or you have somebody else on standby there to come and help you. Just again, in the workplace, like I said, just always have somebody there that you can confide in and build really long-lasting relationships, because you need allies in the workplace sometimes.
And I think from what I found in my experience in going into the world of work is at some point everyone's sort of winging it. Like you're not just an expert straight away just because you've got a degree and you're doing a week at work. No one knows completely what they're doing with everything. So, don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't know, and learn. And no one's an expert straight away. So wing it, and that's okay.
And I think that follows on to what the last slide on Imogen's presentation about imposter syndrome. That you've applied for the job, you've gone through the interview process, it's your first day, and you walk through the door and you're like, am I meant to be here? What am I doing here? How am I even going to do it? I think everyone's been in that position. I've definitely been in that position of like, am I meant to be doing this? So I think it's just about believing in yourself. You have been hired for a job. You have got that position or anything by your skills and your hard work as well.
And I think on that one, in terms of winging it, there's a question that John posted a while ago, which was, I forget exactly who this was aimed at, but about making a career switch. And I think for whether it's changing jobs or going from sort of full-time employment to maybe consultancy, or any of those changes, I think we've all made them. They're never easy, but here we are, we've survived it. So any advice for those young people going forward who have got decisions to make about colleges and university or not, or jobs and etc.?
That's a good one.
Nice.
I'm just trying to think about it.
I can definitely give you some thinking time.
Yeah.
I've got to say, when I have made these career switches. I have thought about repercussions. Always the most important things and top of my priority list, and I was right to put these top of my priority list, were not work-related things. It was mundane. Is this job in the right geographical location so I can get to it? It was, does this fit with the other parts of my life? Because work isn't your whole life. Work is there to make the rest of life easy, maybe because it's fulfilling your values, maybe just it's putting food on the table. So I have, and I always thought about the rest of my life before, what's a good career move, sort of thing.
So for me, I think I've made 3 jumps probably. The first jump was easy because I didn't like working in recruitment. So, and I started working for a really amazing human rights organization. So what's not fun about that? The second, the one from working in human rights right into politics was, I was so scared that I was going to make the wrong decision because I'd been at Amnesty for a really long time. And it meant not only jumping into a new institution, but losing all my benefits, because you have benefits when you work. The longer you work in the workplace, you get workplace benefits, which are always fun. And so, and I thought to myself, okay, if I go into this new job, I have to go through another probation period. What if they don't like me and I lose the job and I don't have a job anymore? So those are all the things that I was thinking about. Luckily for me, it really worked out. So my advice is actually, if it scares you to jump from one thing to another, that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because it means that you're testing your boundaries. It means that you're challenging yourself and that you're doing something that's going to equip you with new skills. And actually making the jump from human rights to politics, they're kind of related, but making that jump from working in a charity to working in a political institution for me was brilliant because it opened up a whole new world for me. I networked with amazing people. I got to meet some amazing members of parliament. I got to write articles. I got to meet interesting people that would then lead to my next career opportunities. So, you know, sometimes jumping can feel really scary, but actually it opens up a whole new world for you and a whole new leap of opportunities that you probably wouldn't have had if you stay in the other organization. And there's that whole thing about stagnancy, right? So if you stay in one place for too long, sometimes it can get boring and you're just settling. And actually jumping into something new and fresh presents new, it means that you get to enjoy what you're doing a bit more for longer.
Ryan, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so I think
Thank you, Zainab.
Picking up a little bit on what Zainab said with things just, you know, do work out. So I can't talk about career switches because I've only worked in PR, but going back to my university process, I went up and down the country to about 6 open days and I didn't go to any of those universities. I ended up going through clearing, which like at the time was like, oh no, like it's really scary.
Yeah.
But it does work out. Clear is a little bit like transfer deadline day. You're sort of like, oh, which university can take you and can you go to? But things do work out. You just got to sort of trust the process. And if it scares you a little bit, then usually that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I have to absolutely concur with that. I mean, in terms of myself, I taught for 10 years and I didn't actively make the decision to leave teaching. It was because of health. And I decided to go and run my business full time. So I've moved from an environment of being around people consistently to actually working by myself and actually being responsible for the income that comes in. And it was absolutely petrifying. But after the first 6 weeks of not being able to speak to people and, you know, getting through it, I actually became more confident. And it goes back to a saying that I mentioned earlier this week. I think sometimes we have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's something that I've spoken. So Dean, who spoke earlier this week about moving to Google. So yeah, initially it was a very difficult transition to a company that works in a very different way. And like after about 6 months, I was asking him, how's it going? And he said, I think I've become comfortable with being uncomfortable, as in I was expecting it to get easier. It hasn't. I've now understood that that's just how it is. And I was like, Ryan, you said you haven't like changed careers, but surely every new client you get is a completely new set of skills you've got to pick up. You've got to understand their particular business area and also come up with kind of new ideas for how you can get their brand awareness up. So I kind of see that as a new job every client. Yeah, absolutely. And it's sometimes quite interesting. You've got to try and win that client first. So like an hour before the meeting, you're like, I need to know all about van leasing, start panicking. So yeah, it's I suppose so. Yeah. So any sort of like consultancy role can feel like that. So yeah, that's why it's quite good variation.
Okay, thank you guys. Do we have time for one more question, Ben? And then I'm going to do my lever question in terms of the question that's coming up. What do you think? Should I start with that one?
If everyone's all right with that, we'll give it one more, and then we'll let everyone get lunch.
Okay, guys. So I want you to think back to when you were in year 10, okay? And knowing what you know now, with in terms of what's going on, in terms of the jobs you've done and the walks of life you've been through, what advice would you give to yourself in year 10 or year 11 to do over the summer? What would you advise yourself to do over the summer?
I've got one.
Go on, Zainab.
Okay, so bearing in mind, in year 10, I wanted to be a graphic designer. I would say really have fun over the summer, first of all, because, mate, year 11 is the year that you're going to have is going to be, you know, intense, great, but intense. So have fun over the summer, but also do take steps in summer to really familiarize yourself with your chosen career. And I don't know why I did that, but what I mean is try and get, if you can, work with your school, work with your teachers to try and get some kind of internship or work experience in the field that you have in your mind. So if you want to be a lawyer, for example, saying to yourself, do you know what, I want to go and work in a law firm or shadow a lawyer or a barrister for about a week, just to understand what it's like to work in that in that role, because then again, it might influence what you choose to do after that, because you might end up being in the law firm and being like, do you know what, this isn't really for me. I really enjoy music, so I'm going to chase a career with this instead. And so it gives you an opportunity, it gives you some leeway to kind of start thinking about whether you want to make any changes, but just enjoy your summer as well.
A balance, yeah. Ryan, you got one there for us?
Yeah, I've sort of echoed that really. Enjoy it first and foremost, you know. But yeah, throw yourself into everything, explore. Sort of, you know, if you want to go into medical profession, maybe be like, if you know, you've got a relative who works for the NHS, be like, oh, can I come in for you for like the week just to see what you do, and just to try and eliminate what you don't want to do. Sometimes that's easier than finding what you do want to do. So yeah, probably basically echoing what Zainab said.
Brilliant, thank you, Ryan.
I agree with all of that, of course, but let's throw an extra idea into the mix, which is this: read. Read for pleasure, read non-fiction, read fiction, I don't care what. If you care about something, and everyone cares about something, there's 100 books on it. So read. Why am I saying that? Because it's fun, because you'll enjoy it if you're reading stuff about what you enjoy. The subject matter doesn't matter, because the skill that most lets people down, I find, is their lack of being comfortable with the written language, understanding it and writing it. Half your GCSEs need those skills. Even the ones that are pretty sciencey, but there's essay-based questions. If you're going to uni, at the posh unis or the better unis, they don't say I'm studying history, they say I'm reading history. Because if you're going to uni, you're reading. So get used to it. Read stuff that you like. Find the stuff you care about, read the books about it.
Brilliant, guys.
I've got a book suggestion then for everyone's summer. So one that really impacted me, the last one I've spoken about it a lot, is Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. So for the female watchers, you'll read it and go, yeah, that makes sense now why this happens to me all the time. But for the male watchers, you're in for a shock as to how the world is built for us and not anyone else. And then I've got some similar reading along that theme of kind of learning about the experiences I don't have for my summer reading. So there's one for you, Invisible Women.
Brilliant, guys. All that's left for me to do is to say a massive thank you to our guests. You've been absolutely amazing, giving some really insightful talks and presentations. And hopefully we'll see you again next year. I've been doing this to everyone, saying see you again next year. So you say yes, and it's on camera and it's recorded. And I can hold you to account. To our audience, please comment, like, and subscribe. Let us know what you would like to see next year. What guests you would like us to get on. We want to make this bigger and better next year. The feedback that we've got has been that this has been really amazing. And like I said, we want to organize this with a longer time lead and not under 4 weeks. But we're happy with what we've produced so far. And once again, guys, thank you for giving up your time and giving back to the community. And if you are around this afternoon, please join us at 2:00. We have a singer, we have an actor, head of digital marketing for Ministry of Sound. and we have a project manager for some of London's biggest theatres as well. So it'd be interesting to speak to her about how COVID's affected them and how they're dealing with it. So once again, a big thank you to all our guests, and a big thank you to Ben Rouse, who's been a great co-host. Enjoy yourself and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Good luck.
Thank you.